Day 1, it's May 1, 2020. We have Uscom on the line, and Uscom is an innovative medical technology company specialising in development and marketing of premium non-invasive cardiovascular and pulmonary medical devices. The company has 3 practice-leading suites of devices in the field of cardiac, vascular, and pulmonary monitoring. The Uscom 1A Advanced Haemodynamic Monitor, Uscom BP Plus Central Blood Pressure Monitor, and the Uscom SpiroSonic Digital Ultrasonic Spirometers. Professor Rob Phillips is the Chairman and CEO, and we're very happy to be joined by Rob today on the line. Rob is the inventor and founder of Uscom, and he's the author of over 30 patents, 30 publications, and multiple international presentations on cardiovascular measurement and application. He took the company public, as well as having acquired and integrated 2 international medical device companies into the business. Take it away, Rob, man of the hour.
Thanks very much, Laura, and thanks very much for the opportunity to talk to investors and just update them as to what we've been doing in the last month or so. It's been a very exciting time worldwide for investors as well as for international commercial operators. So there's probably quite a lot to talk about, and hopefully I can give a little bit of background as to what's happening on the medical clinical front as well as the commercial business front with Uscom. For those of you who are relatively new, we're an ASX listed medical device development company based in Sydney. We've got a dedicated focus on the development and marketing of innovative, non-invasive cardiovascular and pulmonary medical devices. Our current record revenue growth is from the Uscom 1A alone, but we have a constellation of new products in development and approaching regulatory approval worldwide to generate future incremental growth through our expanding global distribution channels. Our devices are playing a unique and life-saving role in the global health crisis, with new products poised to contribute significantly to clinical recovery strategies. So these are the lines on which I'll talk today and continue to back up. I think just as a matter of reiteration, and this is the first time we've had a chance to present these, our quarterly cash flow results, our 4C, was very exciting with our profit, our first profit, up nearly $1 million and 0.74 mil profit. Our cash flow was up 1.39 mil. Our cash receipts were up 135%, and our cash on hand increased 63%, and we remain debt-free. This is absolutely the Rubicon for medical device companies. It takes a long time to get to that point of profitability, and it is the reflection of sound and strong foundations. In summary, we're profitable, cash flow positive, record receipts, cash on hand and debt free, which is a strong position for us to be in. Uscom China continues to grow, and we've got strong Q4 orders, while Europe and the US COVID-19 sales activity is really starting to increase. It's been a little bit slow because of the somewhat sort of disordered state of both Europe and the US, but they are certainly identifying what they need to do with their health systems, and this involves spending on critical cares and cardiovascular pulmonary devices, which is very much positive for us. One of the things that's starting to rise up in our future is that lung recovery monitoring for COVID patients is going to become very, very important, and we are right in the middle of that. And we are developing new products for market in the second half. So it's a very, very dynamic time, not only for the world, but for us as well. And we're in transition or inflection, if you like, turning into profitability and a global organised entity. Just as a little bit of background, we're the experts in circulation. We do cardiovascular pulmonary, and these are very important parts of global monitoring device markets. Our vision is really simple: to improve clinical care in cardiovascular and pulmonary medicine and address the challenges of global disease. And so we're right at the core of the COVID process. We also have a commercial ambition to become a leader in global healthcare, establish a profitable, enduring growth culture. We've got 3 suites of products. There's a SpiroSonic, which is for COVID-19. It's pulmonary assessment technology, digital ultrasonic spirometers, high fidelity, premium quality, covering COVID-19, lung dysfunction, asthma, COPD, and occupational lung disease. We've got the foundation product, the Uscom 1A, which is sepsis, which is particularly so in COVID-19, heart failure and fluid management. And then we've got the BP Plus, which is a specialist device for hypertension and vascular disease, which is coming to market at the moment. We are an Australian company, but we're growing globally, and we now have footprints across the globe. This provides pathways for multiple products into multiple currencies and into multiple markets. So it hedges us against currency shifts, market shifts, product changes, etc. We've got an expanding network of people, and growth is really about people. You need people as a foundation to drive us forward, and we've got a very strong team of people coming together now that will provide the growth and direction for the company over the next 5 to 10 years. Let's talk a little about COVID, because it's impossible not to in the current environment, but it's a viral infection and ultimately may infect 30 million people or more worldwide, and will result in the death of perhaps 500,000 of those. This pandemic has prompted a transformational response from health systems worldwide, and there have been substantial commitments to massive spending over the next 2 years, and probably sort of highlighted the changes of what infrastructure spend inadequacies have done to healthcare systems over the last 10 years. So precision non-invasive medical devices will be an important part of the re-equipping of public health systems worldwide, and we think our devices will be a substantial part of that. If we look at COVID and how we treat COVID, in the absence of a vaccine, it's really quite simple, and that is we need respiratory support the lungs, and that comes from ventilators. We need cardiovascular support because as a consequence of pneumonia and the complications of pneumonia, what we need to do is look at the cardiovascular system, and this is absolutely critical, and that's what the Uscom device does, allows us to manage the heart and the vessels to ensure that patients don't die. Now, interestingly, the evidence that's come out of New York and the US recently, and certainly out of China as well, is that COVID-19 patients on ventilators have a very high mortality, which is not what we would expect. And importantly, patients with cardiovascular damage of any kind, whether it's hypertension, cardiovascular disease, or inflammatory changes, have a 10 times mortality if they have COVID. So these are very important indicators which tell us that cardiovascular function is very important. The interesting opportunity for Uscom is that ventilators are everywhere, but Uscom is now mostly recognised in institutions of excellence. And in fact, the Chinese National Health and Medical Commission of the People's Republic of China recommended specifically Uscom for the treatment of severe coronavirus in adults and children. And we are spending quite a deal of time looking at those opportunities and expanding into Chinese hospitals. So that's keeping us occupied in Uscom China. Sepsis in children, the Society of Critical Care Medicine, which is the US-based pediatric sepsis group, also recommended Uscom as a method for management of cardiovascular function in sepsis. And remember, sepsis is very, very common, and it is a very fatal very often fatal disease. And we know now that it's cardiovascular function that we need to focus on to optimise the outcomes in these folk. So what's going on with COVID? And it's interesting because the emphasis is going to shift slightly from the acute phase COVID, where we look for ventilation and cardiovascular support. And what we see on the left there is COVID pulmonary fibrosis, and that's where we get consolidation with these pneumonic foci. But what happens is they are inflammatory and they turn into pulmonary fibrosis, which is non-functioning lung tissue. As you can imagine, that reduces the lung function. So the long-term effects of this pulmonary fibrosis are really unknown. We haven't, COVID hasn't been around long enough. It's been basically 3 months since we've been starting to document and observe the changes. Now, the best way to look at pulmonary function is digital ultrasonic spirometry, and it's particularly accurate and can monitor sensitively changes in lung function. The applications are in clinics, e-health, and home care. And in fact, the market has recently been predicted to double in 12 months from 2.6 billion to 6.5 billion. So we're focusing and being fortunate in that some of our recent development has coincided with this expanding market, and the SpiroSonic Air is basically our newest spirometry product that includes all of the most recent technologic developments, both in electronics and in ultrasonic spirometric technology. Incredibly highly sensitive, very simple to use, it's very durable, it's got wireless connectivity to apps and software, and you can have remote telehealth, home care monitoring and diagnosis by doctors, etc. And the opportunity in terms of sales is really substantial, but still unpredicted. But if we look at the 10 million infection install base, if you like, then the opportunity for monitoring and supporting these folk in their recovery is very high. One of the other things that we've had a lot of demand for, and we've rushed into accelerated development of, is the Venti test, and that is there are many ventilators being purchased and installed into new clinical centres. Every ventilator needs calibration, and one of the best methods to calibrate is digital ultrasound. This is one of the most high fidelity methods to measure the accuracy with which ventilators deliver both pressure, flow, and that's very powerful. So we have rushed into development and production the Venti test product, and it will basically be installed in many hospitals to allow them to calibrate their ventilators. The reason we actually started to develop this technology has been because of demand. People have been calling us, say we need a really high quality Venti calibration. And so we're in the process of developing this and taking this to market. So Uscom really is involved in all phases of COVID, both the acute, the critical and the recovery phases of COVID. The pulmonary consolidation when people get infections from COVID, the very early stages, to watch how the lung function goes. Drop off, you need to go to hospital and you need to take care. Sepsis and cardiovascular function, once you get septic and your cardiovascular system starts to fail, then Uscom 1A is the critical care technology that allows clinicians to manage and optimise cardiovascular performance and oxygen delivery in the septic state. COVID recovery now, as I said, is really the hot space going forward, and this will really be an ongoing part of our business as we go forward, and it's centred around e-health, etc. Obviously, ventilator calibration is also another important thing that we'll be following up with and delivering to market quite quickly. Innovation, Uscom Technology's highest quality personal spirometers allows for home lung function testing at research standards. Uscom digital spirometry, ultrasonic flow technology. For medical technology companies, innovation determines our future revenue, and we continue to develop new devices and improve current technologies. This is the powerful platform that will drive revenue over the years ahead. We're also continuing to improve installed and currently established technologies. And if we look at the BP Plus, we've just completed an A&D partnership. And A&D are one of the world's leading micro manufacturers of precision measurement technology, and we've co-developed a module for the BP Plus which allows us to deliver central waveforms at the heart from simple cuff measurements. And this is really outstanding technology, whereas most technologies use algorithms. Ours is a direct transfer function from the brachial waveform. Our strong belief is that this patented technology will actually improve both the measurement of hypertension and the monitoring and precision of therapy. And we've partnered with a number of clinical experts in the US and around the world looking at this, and our findings are very optimistic at the moment. So let's look at our strategy. It really is a focus on China sales and distribution. This is where our revenue will come from. This is where our opportunity is, and it's now stabilising after the COVID chaos, if you like. We will also be looking to spill out from our China focus into Europe and US to follow up our direct COVID sales, and also look at the recovery market in both of these territories. Both the US and Europe are very cognizant now of the need for re-equipping or up-equipping many of their hospital facilities, public health facilities, to prepare for future infectious disease outbreaks. COVID may well be gone in another 12 months, but there will be waves of different pandemics and epidemics and seasonal infections that will require high levels of clinical care and equipping in public hospitals. We'll also develop e-health features for COVID-19 recovery monitoring. We also have to, from a practical point of view, expand our global manufacturing to meet the anticipated demand. Also, we'll be looking to take a larger stake in digital marketing strategies, and we're in process now of developing a Southeast Asian headquarters in Singapore. And of course, we will continue to drive regulatory approvals, an incredibly challenging aspect of our business, but one that is central to our revenue streams. If we look at the Uscom register, and probably for those of you who are investors, what you might be comforted to know is that the stock is incredibly tightly held by folk who are deeply invested in the company. While the free float's only 31%, it is still a very strong opportunity to invest in a sound company. And as is often touted as an indicator of the utility of or the opportunity to invest in these companies, is look at the investors and look at their profile. These are people who are invested in the business and know what it's doing. In summary, just to sort of go back through what we've found: profitable, cash flow positive, record cash receipts, cash on hand, and debt free. We're continuing strong growth forecasts from Uscom China. Europe and US distributions showing sales pipeline growth related to COVID. And we are now looking very closely at the COVID-19 recovery monitoring models so that we can contribute most to the recovery of the very large number of patients worldwide who will be recovering from the infection. Sustained organic growth we have maintained over 6 years, and we continue to look at that growth as a platform, but we believe that we have put enough things in place to significantly accelerate that rate of growth over the next 5 years. Incremental growth trends, we have acquired companies into our organisation. We are slightly aggressive and opportunistic about how we will expand the company, and it's in line with a cohesive and well-determined board-guided strategy. And again, we have multiple products, multiple jurisdictions, multiple currencies, and in a changing world, that creates a real opportunity to hedge exposure to all kinds of risk. Conclusion, we've established a growth history with rapidly transforming fundamentals and a strategy focused on more products and more distribution. This leads to more revenue. We're part of the emergency global response to the coronavirus pandemic and are now developing strategies to manage COVID-19 recovery patients. We've got innovative technologies that deliver global health solutions and save lives in an unpredictable world. So thank you very much for your time, and I hope this brings you up to date with what we've been doing and where we're at, and profiles a little bit about the company and its ambitions. I'd be delighted now to take any questions.
Thanks very much, Rob. That was a very comprehensive profile. We do have quite a number of questions for you. On the revenue front, obviously, as you mentioned in your presentation, innovation does drive revenue, and China is a big push for you going forward. Richard has a question for you on revenue. Is there any consumable or recurring revenue component of revenue, or is the revenue for your company mostly from the sale of the device only?
Look, for the Uscom 1A, it's a capital sale, but the margins are high and the value of the sale is high. It's a capital sale. BP Plus, there are cuffs and a range of cuffs which we're learning are very much more important. That will be a consumable. For the SpiroSonic, you've got both filters and disinfectant which is consumable. So we do have consumables and we do have ongoing consumable opportunities, and we are aware of the paths that will allow us to sort of be opportunistic in that. I think medical markets are increasingly aware that consumer models, when you graph them, draw lines into infinite revenue, but in practice it actually doesn't work like that. I think you need to have products and markets and financial models based on the function of the devices. So yes, we do have some consumables, and there may be an consumable expansion. We're looking at bringing other technologies into the company. One of the things that we've managed to do, which I think is an unrecognised opportunity, is that we know how to bring products to market. We have now an emerging global network. We know how to get approvals into China, and we have a very substantial network into China. So we can acquire or distribute other products into China, and they would probably be much more like consumable, lower price technologies or consumables that will boost revenue and diversify our business.
And does Uscom have stock of all its products, Rob? That's another question that's come through from Peter.
Sorry, Laura, what was that?
Does Uscom have stock of all its products? Do you keep stock of all your products?
At the moment, it's really hard to maintain stock, and really we do need to expand our stock bases. Our demand's sort of increasing quite rapidly, and so we have to look very carefully at how much we hold in stock, but we are going to have to increase. At the moment, we don't hold much stock at all, but we need to build that restocking process in line with demand. And at the moment, demand's far exceeding, well, at least meeting the rate at which we can supply.
how long would it take to manufacture each of your products? If there is an issue, obviously at the moment, you know, supply chains, it's a little bit tricky, isn't it, with COVID?
We've been fortunate in that our supply chains have actually been mostly unaffected, a little bit delayed perhaps, but not so much. We've got a short, mid and long-term strategy for manufacturing, and it will reflect the demand as we have global activities expanding. Short-term, we're manufacturing in-house and in Hungary. We do BP Plus and Uscom in Australia. BP Plus we're going to have to do something else about, and there are a number of alternatives about overseas manufacture with that. We have Hungarian manufacture for our SpiroSonic products, and that too has a finite limit. So at a mid-stage you outsource partially, and at a third stage, when your demand reaches such a stage, you shift to regions of outsourced manufacturing. So there is a strategy to deal with growing demand.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for presenting at the Virtual Health Conference today, Rob. That was super informative. And if anyone wants any more information, obviously they can find you online and they can find your company on the ASX. So
thanks very much. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thanks.